In this video, we're talking Miata prices, looking at some extremely overpriced cars that are for sale in my area, and talking about if these prices on Miatas are just way too high for what the cars are. If you're just looking to get into Miatas now, the prices are the absolute highest that I've seen in my 6 years of looking for these cars for sale. These prices have gone absolutely crazy in recent times, and these cars are almost 2 to 3 times the prices that they were a couple years ago. Now, I got thinking about this because just a few days ago, I went and I looked at a $7,500 1991 Miata with my friend. That was not mint, it didn't have rust, but the paint was pretty bad, it had an oil burning problem, and there was just a decent amount that wasn't perfect with that car. Now, a long time ago, I would have seen that price and been like, no way, don't even look at that thing. But in today's market, the prices have just gone really crazy, so that was actually not a bad car to look at. I personally wouldn't have paid that, and I still think that that car was a bit overpriced, but I'll get into that at the end of this video. The prices on these cars just keep going up and up and up, which is really good if you own one, but bad if you're looking to buy one. And at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about if I think these cars are extremely overpriced or if I think they're still worth it. Before we do that though, I want to hear from you what you paid for your Miatas down below in the comments section. And now let's go look at some really overpriced cars that are for sale in my area. Alright, so I'm now inside. I'm going to go ahead, pull up Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and do a little bit of browsing and see if I could find some overpriced cars and some cars that I think are a really good deal. Let's jump right on here and see what we could find. Here we go. Miata. Alright, so here up in Hamden, Mass, we have a 1990 Miata. This one's a part out, so we're not even going to look at that. Alright, so I'm looking through here. Our first NA Miata is this 1992. This thing was just listed. It's listed for $5,500. It's red. It looks like a respray because the rockers are not black, and on red cars they should be black. It's got a decent amount of mods here, but as I said in one of my other videos, when you're looking at a car, normally I don't add the value of mods into the actual value of the car, because unless you wanted to do these exact mods, they're really not of value to you. So yeah, this thing's $5,500 or best offer. I would say this thing's actually a little bit overpriced. However, in today's market, it's not horrible. Alright, next up here we have this 1990 for $6,000 that has 220,000 miles on it, and it's got an insane amount of camber on this car. So taking a look here, it's basically a 90 that's got probably some suspension mods and wheels. Let's see if it's got a mod list. It's got Raceland coilovers, some suspension work done here. And that's really it. So yeah, this thing's got wheels and tires, and the guy's asking $6,000 for a 220,000 mile Miata. Alright, next up we have a $2,000 1990 here. And this car at first starts to sound like it's not a bad deal, and then you look and this thing's got rod knock and it needs an engine. Now, this isn't a horrible price at $2,000 for a chassis if it were in pretty good shape. But if you look, it looks like there might be a little bit of rust starting on that rocker. That fender's not quite matched up to that body there. It was probably dinged in or it's starting to rust. Looks like the soft top was ripped and patched up. And this car for $2,000 is probably priced a little bit high, needing a motor. You could also see that it's had a decent amount of rust cut out of it, which is good that it started to be prevented, but you could see all around that there's a lot more rust, so that thing's going to turn into a pretty big job. Looking here, we have this lifted Miata. That thing's awesome. I really like it. Let's see. $5,000. Runs and drives, but has some engine issues. I know they are cheap to fix. I'm moving and need it gone ASAP. So, engine issues. This thing's probably got a blown motor if they're not saying what the issues are. And $5,000 for a car with a blown motor. Ripped up seat here. No floor mat. Pretty worn steering wheel. That's just pretty overpriced in my opinion. Whoops, I clicked off of it. Scrolling down here, we have a 1992 that was originally listed for $10,000. I don't know if you saw that, but this thing was put up for 10 grand when this was new. And if you click on it, it's got a style bar. Don't put a style bar in your Miata. It's a death trap. And then if you scroll through, This thing looks pretty clean. It's white, it's a 92, so it's still a 1.6, so that's not great unless you really like the earlier cars. But for $8,000, that's pretty overpriced in my opinion, and I wouldn't pay close to that for a 1.6 car like this. I'm curious to hear your thoughts there though, but in my opinion, this thing's overpriced. Next up, I'm just going to click on one more overpriced one here. 1990, this thing was listed 6 weeks ago, so you could tell they're not moving at this price. 115,000 miles, and that was an accidental click. Oh my God, the mold in this car is absolutely horrible. This is the kind of thing that would absolutely turn me away right away. You don't want to look at a car if it looks like this. This thing's got tons of mold growing on the door. You could see the whole steering wheel's insanely moldy, and this thing is just gross. $800 for that, I would light it on fire, to be completely honest with you. That thing, stay away from a car if it's going to look like this. Alright, last on the list of overpriced cars, and this one is like the holy grail of overpriced cars in my opinion. We have a 1991 for $5,000 that has 200,000 miles on it, doesn't have a hardtop on it. It's got a mismatched door, as you could tell. That was swapped on. It used to have a stripe on it there or something. It's been repainted because the rocker's not black once again. If we click through, the engine bay actually doesn't look horrible, but then we get over here and you could tell that this car used to be red. It looks like it was hit on the side. It's got a mismatched wheel. It's got a mismatched rear finish panel, and this thing, this is a clunker. This is absolutely overpriced. I would not pay close to $5,000 for this car. If it runs and drives, this is like a $1,500 car on a pretty good day in my opinion, but prices are going nuts. I'll get into why in a few minutes. Now that we've taken a look at a couple overpriced cars, let's find some that I don't think are overpriced and that I might consider a okay deal. Alright, so this car right here is a bit of a beater. It's actually reminding me a lot of my car. 1, it's a 93. 2, it's red. 3, it's got tons of rust. And this guy's actually also only asking $1,000. Now this thing has a lot more rust than my car had. It's got a rust hole there. The rocker's shot, the front fender's shot. And that's, I'm assuming, the case on both sides. It needs a top, so it's probably super musty inside. It does have a new radiator. It says it needs some timing work that wasn't done on it. And this car in today's market, I would actually say would be a pretty good pickup at $1,000. Next up here, we have a $6,000 1996 with 100,000 miles on it. This thing actually looks to be pretty clean. It says it needs a little bit of paint work and there are a couple small dents. Comes with 2 sets of wheels. Car is a 5-speed with a clean title. This car is actually fairly reasonably priced in today's market, and it's not too over the top compared to a lot of what I've been seeing. Considering the body looks pretty clean, it's got 100,000 miles and it runs. You will notice that this thing's been up for 5 days and it hasn't sold yet, so that $6,000 is definitely a little bit high and people aren't buying these cars at that price point. We look at this 91 here and this looks good. It does have a hard top and it looks to be in actually really good shape. It's got 132,000 miles, but I believe that this is an automatic and it does need a rear window. So yes, it is an automatic. It needs a top. It's not in perfect shape, so I would say this price is fairly decent, especially with that top, even though it's an automatic, which brings the price down a lot. Alright, so just taking a little bit more of a look here, it's actually pretty hard to find a car that's in good shape and at what I would consider a reasonable price. A lot of the cars that we've been taking a look here have been listed for quite some time, and the reason is they're overpriced. Now, if you see a good deal on Miatas, they're getting snatched up almost right away, and it's really crazy how on top of this stuff you have to be if you want to get a good deal on these cars. If you're patient, you could get all of these cars that I've been looking at for probably 25% less than they're listed at. In today's market, that wouldn't be a bad price, but a lot of these things that you're seeing are pretty overpriced. After taking a quick look through Craigslist, there's literally no NA or NB Miatas in my area. So now we've taken a look at a lot of cars which in my opinion are well overpriced. But how do we reach a price point when we buy something? We need to think about that thing's value. How much does it mean to us? How useful is it to us? And how much is that thing worth? When you think of a NA or a NB Miata, they're a relatively inexpensive sports car that's a convertible, that's easy to work on, that's easily modifiable, that comes with a ton of support like videos on my channel and on the rest of the internet, and you get a lot of car for that price. These cars also get good gas mileage, they handle really well, and they're very easy to turbocharge and once again modify to make your own and make them perform even better. So there absolutely is a reason why people keep buying these cars and why the prices keep going up. Another thing to consider is a lot of people have time on their hands right now. Some people are getting stimulus money and they're trying to put that money into something like a Miata, which is a fun car that they're just going to have, drive around, have a fun time with, and it's something that they're going to be looking forward to. Now, once things settle down, I do expect the prices of Miatas to sort of flatten out. I don't know if they're going to drop, but I don't think they're going to really keep rising as crazy as they have been the last year or two. So why are people buying at these prices, and would I buy a NA Miata at these prices? So simply put, if Miatas were extremely overpriced, people would just stop buying them and the prices would sort of level out. But they keep going up because people think these cars are worth it. Now, given all those reasons that I just went over, I do think that these cars still have a ton of value, but I do think that they're starting to get to the point where they're a little bit overpriced. To some people, like my friend, it's worth it to spend top dollar to get a pretty nice Miata that he's going to be able to enjoy for this summer, for future summers, have as a project, and just start working on now. Would I personally spend about $8,000 on an NA Miata with around 100,000 miles that's in pretty good shape? Absolutely not. At that point, it's really just not worth it to me. And the answer is something that a lot of people, for some reason, don't go for. And the answer to if you think an NA Miata is overpriced is getting a really nice NB Miata. For the price of a NA Miata that's in pretty good shape, you normally could get a really nice NB Miata that's optioned out with the LS package and has a Torsen diff and has big brakes and a nice interior, or you could get a okay NA Miata. For me, the answer is pretty clear there, but let me know what you guys think down below of the NA versus the NB debate. I guess I might be a little bit biased here since I already have my NA with pop-ups and I do love this car and I'm not going to get rid of it, but if I were to get another one, it wouldn't be a NA with the prices that they're going these days. And to wrap up this video, when I got my 93 Miata back 5 or so years ago, I paid $1,000 for this car. Now, one of the rockers was rotted out, it did need a rain rail, and this thing's got 200,000 miles on it, but $1,000 is a pretty good price for what I've got for this car. In today's market, I'm seeing cars that were in similar condition to mine listed for like $2,000 to $3,000, and that just blows my mind. And with all that said, that is going to wrap up this video. As always, I want to hear your thoughts on Miata prices down below. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, share it with your friends that are looking at overpriced Miatas, and subscribe for more Miata content. I hope you stick around for the next one.